Hey y'all. So I posted a video the other day on my Facebook group, and someone in the comments section requested to see a video on abrading, like when to abrade and which direction to abrade, and how much, how to know when it's too much and not enough, and just talk about abrading a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna do. So abrading is basically all you're doing when you're abrading your edge is you're stiffening or strengthening your edge, and you're getting rid of those delicate areas. So your edge always has to be stout enough to support the flake that you're trying to get. And it helps if it's kind of facing in the right direction. So most people, as far as the different things you can abrade with, most modern knappers use these grinding wheels. And these are just grinding wheels for a bench grinder. You can buy them at any hardware store. They usually come in different grits or coarsenesses, so you can get coarse and down to fine, or whatever in between there. And they'll have a little bit some will be a little bit more aggressive than others. The coarser the grit, so they're going to remove material for you a lot more aggressively and efficiently. But that's okay. Like early in the reduction process, when you're working with a larger piece with thicker edges and stuff, you're good. I usually use the really coarse abrader. Once you start getting down to a finer, more knife edge, like closer to finish, in reduction, you're gonna want to. What I usually do is step down to a finer abrader, so it's not quite as coarse and aggressive, and that'll keep you from removing too much of your edge unintentionally. But basically, what you're wanting to do is most knappers that I see will abrade away from the face that they're wanting to take the flakes off of. So if I'm wanting to raise this edge up this way, I would abrade down this way, and that's going to remove little flakes off this surface, and it's going to turn this edge up towards that face, and that'll help. Once I flip it over to take my flake, that'll help that ring crack to initiate just above the edge, and it'll give that ring crack room to initiate. And I usually work off a pretty steep edge and pretty dull, stout edges, because I swing with a lot of force usually, and kind of aggressive, I guess, in my percussion. I've kind of found that's just kind of what works for me. But you can also use just a piece of granite or sandstone or whatever. This is just a little piece of granite I use quite a bit. You find one that fits your hand pretty good, and you can grind the edge like this as well. You can kind of shear little pieces off. You can see how that's shearing little flakes off there. So it's really turning that edge to take a flake from this side. So it's putting that bevel on there. So if this edge just comes out, and it just comes out to a point here right at the center line, and it's very sharp at all, when you hit it, what happens is it just crushes. It doesn't have enough surface area for your tool to grab a hold of and get that little ring crack. It's called a ring crack, is where the flake, the first place that it opens up at. It's just like if you were doing a core, taking bladelets off a core, those little dished out areas after the flake pops off, that's where that fracture initiates at, and that's called a ring crack. Ring, like a wedding ring. So that's basically what you're trying to do. You're trying to get that edge dull enough and stout enough to support that ring crack being able to open up and then go in there and form a bulb of percussion, and then the fracture, keeps traveling. How far it travels depends on your surface contours, how hard you hit it, and what kind of support you have. So a lot of times, as a rule of thumb, when you're starting out, you're going to want to braid away from the side that you're wanting to take your flakes from. So if I'm wanting to take flakes off this, off this surface here, I'm going to braid this edge down like this. And with these, especially with these carborundum, these grinding wheels, you can really move your edge a lot with these. So you can kind of use them kind of like a hammerstone. You can kind of almost strike your edge a little bit with them. It'll wear them out faster, but you can actually get some little flakes to be, pop off there if you're kind of working it. You're actually striking your edge with the abrader. I don't do that a whole lot, but you can, and it'll help. It'll really help move that edge for you. Or you can just take your, take whatever tool you're using and remove some small flakes with it. But these little edge turning flakes are really important, whether you're doing them with your abrader or your actual percussor. So I'm abrading away. I want to take flakes from this side, right? So I'm abrading down this way. And you can even come across at a really slight angle, like straight across the surface almost. Just barely catch that edge, and that'll really put a really steep aggressive bevel on right on your edge there. And then a lot of times, after I'm done doing abrading like this, I'll give it a good lateral grind along your edge this way. And that really helps your tool to grab that edge. And it gives it somewhere to make good contact and kind of seat and build that energy up for that crack to initiate and the flake, to be removed. Let's see, what else can we talk about with the braiding? A lot of times I'll go down and then I'll flip it. I'll come back the other direction. If I'm really trying to, it just depends on what you're wanting to do, how you're wanting to move your edge, and all that will come with practice. Being able to familiarize yourself with, your edges, as far as somewhere that looks like a good place to hit and somewhere that might not work out. It might give you a step fracture like I did there. But once you start getting the hang of it, it'll come easier and easier, and then pretty soon it just becomes kind of second nature. You just kind of glance at it, and you can almost just, by feeling it in your hand, a lot of times tell where it needs ground and where it doesn't, and what'll work and what won't, as far as your edge being able to support a flake. But, you know, everybody does it a little differently. I do a lot of raking along the edge like this, and sometimes I'll give it a little extra grind, lateral grind like this. But that's basically the idea with abrading. Now, I will say how much you abrade depends a lot on first of all, the material you're using. So if you're using a nice high quality chert that's pretty glassy and it's got nice tensile strength and it flakes good, you might not need to abrade quite as much as if you were using something like fine-grained basalt or something that's really crushy and crumbly, and that where your edge crushes really easily. So, the material you're using will play a factor on how much you need to abrade. And it's just you got to kind of play it by ear as you're going. If your edge is crushing quite a bit, you might need to grind a little bit more. If you're having trouble getting flakes to release, maybe grind a little bit less. And it also depends on your tool type that you're using too. So copper, or say like a hammerstone or something like that, that's a harder material on your tool, you're gonna be abrading more for that edge to be able to hold up to that tool making contact and not getting that crushing. And if you're using, say, like bone or antler or horn or even wood, you're gonna be abrading less. So you're going to be working off a sharper, more knife edge, because those softer tools are able to grab that edge and seat and transfer that energy easier than a harder material will, like copper. So it's 12 minutes. I guess that's about it. Yeah, you just want to play around with, I would say, get you some different, coarsenesses or grit of abrading wheels or grinding wheels, and try them out. And don't be afraid to go out in the driveway and pick up a piece of granite or sandstone and try it too, because it does the same thing, honestly. Maybe not quite as efficiently as the grinding wheel, but I'm tell you what, if you find the right stone, I actually prefer them to the grinding wheels. So, and of course, if you're trying to be good traditional, that would be the way you'd want to go anyway. But yeah, I guess that's it. Just wanted to talk about abrading a little bit, and hope that helps. So I will go ahead and finish bifacing this thing out here. I think this is a piece of Oahe jasper, believe it or not. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. It's kind of a weird color, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and... So I've got these step fractures here. There's 1, 2, right in front of each other here. So in order to get rid of these, I'm going to want to raise my edge up real high and get in as closely as I can to them. Flip it back and forth a couple times, kind of get that edge moving. I don't want it all the way up the edge on the as far as being high. I want it kind of just enough, rolled over enough where I can get that flake to initiate. Now, if I hit this thing directly in line with these step fractures, most likely it's going to run in here and step again. So what I'll do is I'll come either to one side or the other and try to get a flake to kind of spread out. And as it spreads, hopefully it'll wrap around and it'll get this step fracture off here. A little spot there. So that first one is just more of an isolation. It's going to really isolate this little ridge right here now. It's kind of running in off to the side of these. So let's see what it did. It went in, it kind of spread out. It took care of that bottom one there. And then it kept going, and it got most of the one behind it too. Cleared it right off there. Now you can get them just by getting right in front of them. You get up against them and raise your edge up high enough. You can undercut them by using a lot of surface support with your finger, and even pulling back a little bit helps. Helps undercut them, but you got to get that fracture, your edge high enough, and that fracture to initiate deep enough in the stone to undercut those areas. And like I said, that surface support really helps with that. Another little one there. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get this thing shaped up. Due for a new abrader, that's for sure. So this side's pretty flat. I've got a big old hump right here, so let's try to see if we can get some of that going. So I'm going to grind this edge. It looks a little bit too delicate there. I know if I hit that thing, it's just gonna crush. But if I come and rake down on it like that, and give her a little grind, that'll help dull that area. And hopefully that'll be able to support a flake a little better now. That edge is still pretty high there, but I think sometimes if you choke back on your tool, you get a little bit more speed, a little bit more swing speed. And it'll help those flakes release. Maybe even travel a little bit further too. I'm also finding that I've been using kind of the very end of my tool a lot more here of recent. I found that just catching that edge with just the very end of your tool can get a lot of inward force and make those flakes travel a long way. Actually going to raise that edge back up a little bit because it was down there, hanging down there a little bit too low. I didn't want to release because that edge was so high. It's kind of facing the wrong direction. Lower it down a little bit more there. See, that was kind of a low edge, so I pretty much caught that with just the end of my tool there, and it as your swing's coming through, it's kind of like when it just levels out, you want to make contact right there. Seems to get a lot of follow through that way. And when you're hitting on the end like this, you always want to support your tip up here. All right. And usually, if you're spacing your flakes out enough, you're going to leave yourself opportunities to come back and areas to hit that are left, these deltas. Nice thinning flake there. That'll help us out when we get to notch this thing. Also, running your abrader up and down a few times will really help your edge stand out and help you be able to actually see where it's at. Swing and a miss. That edge is a little bit too high right there. Try not to be too concerned about sacrificing your width. I mean, you got to be conscious of it always, but you know, I wouldn't be too overly concerned with preserving width all the time. Don't be afraid to sacrifice a little bit of your edge to get it to move up or down, or do what you need it to. Adjust it. Might be getting down to where I could probably do some pressure work here. I do my first round of pressure. I usually just go around and do a lateral grind around the whole thing here. And if you use kind of an edge or a corner to go do that lateral grind, it'll help get down in the, you know, those areas that are not exposed so much, kind of hidden. Rather than just using the flat surface, it'll miss quite a bit of the edge a lot of times. So if you tip it up on edge, kind of use the corner of it or something, it'll help get those hard to reach areas. Let's see, what can we do with this thing? Let's see. You know what? Let's try to do a MacCorckle. I haven't made one of those in a while. MacCorckle is a bifurcated point type, which means that the base is bifurcated, meaning it's lobed. It has two lobes here. They kind of stick out like bunny ears. course, the old diamond file works good to abrade your edges with as well, especially those hard to reach areas. So I'm just using my copper to rake away that real delicate stuff there. Get that edge turned a little bit more. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and try to get our base figured out here. So the way I usually do them is go ahead and take my this edge, you know, go ahead and establish that bifurcation on the bottom. Kind of go up in there with that. There we go. That should be pretty good. Now, these are made differently, quite a bit differently, depending on where in the country you find them. I'm going to make one that's kind of similar to the ones we find around here. I noticed down in like Tennessee, when you find them, they are quite a bit thinner, and I don't know, they just look a little differently. They're made a little differently. So I'm going to start working this edge in here, and that'll develop a little bit, not really a notch, but it'll come in and it'll develop a barb in this area right in here, and it'll help establish these kind of rounded, lobed base on there. working on my symmetry here a little bit. These are early archaic point type. I think they're around like 7,000 or 8,000 years old. And they are most always serrated. Straighten them up just a little bit so they're not so pointing out. I don't know if they did this for hafting reasons or what, but that's how they did them. Okay, so now let's work on getting our upper part shaped up here. You find a lot of these made out of Coshocton and hornstone, even Indiana laurel around here. I'm in southeastern Indiana, in case you're wondering. Okay, I'm starting to get my symmetry lined up a little bit better here. Get us a tip put on here. Okay, should be pretty close. See, I'd really like to get maybe even a little punch flake in there. Let's see. Maybe I can do it with this ulna bone. I don't think so. That'll help that tool grab just a little bit there. Hopefully. Yeah. Better. Okay. All right, now for our serrations. Probably go ahead and sharpen my tool up here a little bit. All right. Take one there. kind of a little bit different way of doing these, but than I usually do, like on my pine trees and stuff, but I find it works out good sometimes just to do one at a time and go ahead and shape them as you go. All right, try this one. You'll see that okay? So I'm using quite a bit of inward force on that first flake, and then when I flip it over, I'm just kind of coming almost straight down with it. I'm not real concerned about getting the flake scars to go all the way in or anything. All right. And there you have it. Give our base a little grind here. Straighten up a couple little areas on our base there. Yeah, I think that should do it. Things are usually pretty well ground, so these little files work well for grinding the base. A lot of early archaic stuff. Alrighty. There you have it. One of my favorite point types to find is MacCorckles. Are really neat. Fortunately, we have a lot of them around here. They're pretty prevalent, like in Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, maybe even. So, all right, y'all. Hope that was helpful, and we'll catch you on the next one.